Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover in our last two lectures before the first exam. All the information is on the review sheet. I've given it many times about the exam. Any questions about it? DSP students, you should have received an email from me. So there's some of you I need to follow up on because there are complications, but you should have received an email from me last night. Okay, wonderful. Let's pick up where we left off on Monday. Yes, hold on one sec. Yeah. Yes, that's the Scantron that you need. Can everybody see this? This is the red Scantron, this one. Cool? I think they have it at Pat Brown's, right? Yeah, they sell it at Pat Brown's, but don't count on that on the morning of, because it has happened before where people all go over there the morning of and it turns out they ran out. So get them now if you want to get them. Okay, we were talking about the distinction between schema-driven versus data-driven or automatic versus controlled thinking. And I asked you to think about which of these following examples are most likely or least likely to involve controlled thinking. I wanted you to get a fairly clear sense of what automatic versus controlled thinking is. And I also want you to be reminded that what distinguishes the two kinds of thinking, precursors to these kinds of thinking, is motivation and ability. Okay? Can someone quickly, just so we kind of ease back in quickly, give me an example of a situation likely to involve automatic thinking? Raise your hand quickly. Yes. Didn't you have this example before? Something like that? You're walking in a dark alley and you have an immediate automatic reaction to a scary shadowy figure in front of you. You don't need to think about it and ponder it. You probably have schemas about encountering shadowy figures in dark alleys that this is bad. Okay? Example of controlled thinking, situation of controlled thinking? What? Yeah? I'm not going to eat that donut. Resisting temptations successfully takes a lot of cognitive effort, okay? So I'm going to skip there and say also that this is a great example of motivational factors, okay? If you really, really want to lose that weight, to be healthy, it takes cognitive effort or controlled thinking. Let me think about why I should not eat this. It's not healthy. It's full of saturated fat, blah, 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 blah. Okay, what's an ability circumstance? What's an example of an ability factor, either high ability or low ability, which would lead you to be either more inclined or able to engage in controlled thinking if the situation called for it, or less inclined? What's a factor that can affect your mental resources, your mental ability to process in a controlled manner? Yeah. Okay, maybe your cognitive resources, certainly something known as your self-regulatory resources might be particularly taxed because you're hungry or it's threatened. Another example that's a little bit more straightforward. Not that that was wrong, but a little bit more straightforward. Yeah. Okay, you haven't slept enough, okay? Not sleeping is like, being drunk, okay? Don't come to the exam drunk or having not slept because your mental ability, your ability to engage in controlled thinking, which you tend to need on exams, will be impaired, okay? What I want to move to now is we've done a whole lot of talk about automatic and controlled thinking, cognizing, perceptions, interpretations, that word construals. And that's so important, and I hope I have really, pounded that into your head from the outset of this course, the notion of construals and thinking, that it's so important that we're thinking about thinking. But ultimately, as a social psychologist and social scientist, more generally, we're interested in understanding behavior. Does this automatic and controlled distinction apply to behavior? To say the punchline up front, the answer is yes. Let me give you an example, a few examples of automaticity or controlled kinds of behaviors or the kinds of thinking that go on with certain kinds of behavior. Okay, think about when you first started learning to drive. Okay, think about when you were 16 years old and you're thinking, getting in the car and there's all these weird signs out there. What does that arrow mean? Which is the start pedal? If it's a stick shift, forget about it. Your mind is like totally taxed. Like, how exactly do you do this? You got someone yelling at you next to you and so forth. There's a lot of controlled effort going on and engaging in that kind of behavior. Now that you've driven for 5, 6, 12 years, okay, the kind of thinking, your behavioral movements are likely to be automatic. If you drove to school today, okay, and I asked you, or think about how you get to the supermarket, okay, if I asked you how many stop signs do you pass on your way to school or the supermarket, you cannot tell me, most likely, okay, but I can assure you, I hope that your foot hit the stop pedal, okay, when you saw a traffic sign that said stop. You saw it, you encoded it, but you don't remember it, and you didn't consciously decide to hit the stop pedal because you're automatically behaving, automatically thinking, automatically behaving. Okay, one example of an automatic type behavior. Here's another one. I want you to read the following list of words all together out loud. Okay, this is an example to show you how reading is an automatic behavior. And you'll see by going through this example, it is of the Stroop task. For those of you for whom that's meaningful, it doesn't matter if it's not. It turns out that anyone who has the ability to read, that is literate, cannot stop oneself from reading. It is very difficult. It is such an automatized behavior that you cannot stop it. Okay, so let's see this in action so you really get a feel of what I mean by an automatic behavior right here in class. Okay, read that first column of words out loud, please. Go. Now, the second column, please just say the color of the string of X's out loud, starting with green. Green, blue, red, green, blue, red. Great, so easy. Okay, now I want you to read the word and ignore the color. Do I mean that? No, I don't mean that. Stop. I'm like looking at it going, that's not right. I want you to say the color. Say the color of the word. Ignore the word itself. Say the color. Red, green, blue, red, green, blue. Okay, why are you laughing? Okay, why are you laughing? This is important. Why are you laughing? Wait, you thought that was that hard? Okay, because it didn't sound hard, which sucks for me, okay, because it was supposed to sound noticeably harder, okay, and maybe inside, or just humor me, inside you felt that last column task was really hard. Was it harder? Okay, good. It was supposed to be, and it was supposed to be because you are automatically reading the words. Even though it is irrelevant for your task, you're only supposed to pay attention to the color, okay, you cannot help but want to say almost green even though it's red, the first one. That's the idea there. That's automaticity in action, with reading there being the example. Let's get just two empirical examples. I love them, one because one is historical and, really saw 30 years ahead of itself. And the other one is the Barge et al. Article that you read, and that is assigned for this unit of the course. But let's start with this example of automatic behavior done back in the 1970s by Ellen Langer and her colleagues. Her argument was, as I have stated to you guys, that behavior is often, in her language back then, mindlessly enacted, okay, automatically enacted. And the reason for that, she argued back in the 1970s, and this is going to sound familiar to you guys, is that behavior is often guided by schemas, scripts. Okay, scripts are ideas and knowledge we have about how one is supposed to behave in certain situations. She argued that most of the time, we can just rely on these scripts to direct our behavior, and we don't need to think mindfully about this. The only situations, there are many, but the only times when you will engage in mindful behavior, where you'll be consciously, voluntarily, intentionally choosing your behavior, is if something in the situation alerts you, okay, ding, 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 that a script that you have and that you're likely going to want to apply in the situation is not appropriate. Okay, so going back to the driving example, when I'm driving, I've got my driving behavior script or schema going. Okay, all the more so if I'm driving on a familiar route. But if there's traffic or an accident or I'm trying to find somewhere new, this is telling me you cannot rely on your old scripts. Watch out, there's debris on the road, there's a big accident, there's a big storm, what have you. There's factors out there in the world that are alerting me that my typical driving script, my typical reliance on mindlessly adhering to my driving script is probably not a good idea in this situation. And I will be shifting to more mindful driving kind of behavior. You with me? Okay, pretty simple idea, but profound too. Okay, here's what she did in what I would call the Xerox machine study. Do you have a new one for me? Okay, so it'll be hooked up to this? Yeah. Okay. Okay, here's what she did in the study. Okay, this is a little bit more complicated of a study than we're used to, because instead of our typical 2 conditions, we've got 6 conditions. Okay, it's going to be posted on the web. You don't have to be scrambling to write this. Okay, in all conditions, for all participants, the experimenters, researchers set up a situation where they had participants need to go to a Xerox machine and use a Xerox machine to make copies. Okay, they had to make either 5 pages of copies, 5 Xerox pages. This is known as a small favor. Okay, not a big deal. Or they had to make 20 pages. So there's another one that's back over here. Yeah, I totally script. I think I put it back in there. Think about 20 pages as like 100 pages these days. It's a big deal. Okay, and wait a minute, I'm screwing up again. Yeah, a Confederate, they arrange it, they rig it so that participants are all at a Xerox machine when a Confederate approaches them wanting to make either 5 pages cutting in front of them or 20 pages cutting in front of them. So they're basically asking, can I cut in front of you? I got 5 pages, or can I cut in front of you? I have 20 pages, which is a big deal. Okay, and they give one of 3 reasons. The Confederate gives one of 3 reasons for wanting to ask for this small or big favor. Okay, so let's look at the 3 reason conditions. Okay, in the request-only condition, stay with me guys, we're moving fast today, okay? In the request-only condition, the Confederate says, excuse me, I have 5 or 20 pages, may I use the machine? They're just simply asking, can I use the machine? They don't give any other information. They're just asking a small or big favor. In the pacific condition, the Confederate goes, excuse me, I have 5 or 20 pages, may I use the machine because I have to make copies? This is ridiculous. Good, you're laughing. It's ridiculous because it is not a real reason. Of course you need it to make copies. It's not an actual reason, but it sure sounds like a reason. Because in our minds we know that after because means, oh, they said because they gave it has the appearance of a reason. In a third condition, the Confederate says, excuse me, can I cut in front of you? I have 5 or 20 pages. May I use the machine because I'm in a rush? A real reason. Okay? And what they were interested in here, the dependent variable, is the percentage of participants in each condition who complied with the Confederate's request for a small favor or a big favor. Okay? Here's the idea here. Okay? The idea is that in the remember our 6 conditions here. Okay? The idea is that in the big favor condition, participants should be thinking to themselves, okay, this is a big deal that's being asked of me. This is not a time to rely on automatic existing scripts or schemas about what you do when somebody asks you a favor. This is a big deal. I better pay attention, and I'm going to think in a mindful way about this request that's being made of me. And they infer that this, in fact, did occur by the percentage of people that complied in the different conditions. Specifically, you can see that more people complied in the real reason condition, because they're thinking carefully, they're discerning that there was actually a real reason in this condition, than in the other 2 conditions. And importantly, you can see the placebo condition is the same rate of compliance as just the request condition. These people were onto you. They're thinking carefully. They noticed that the placebo condition is in effect like the request-only condition. They noticed. Got it? Okay, mindful evidence that mindful thinking, mindful behavior is going on in this condition when somebody's asking something big from you, alerting to you to maybe not just act mindlessly. Contrast that with the small favor condition. Okay, it's not a big deal. There's no red flags out in the environment. What do you typically do in a situation when someone asks you a small favor? I have the script that someone asks you a small favor. What's the big deal? Yeah, sure, go ahead. As long as they, say, why can I borrow a pencil for the exam? Sure. Do you have an extra red Scantron sheet? Sure. It's not a big deal. Okay, I don't need to think hard. Let me think. Should I give him my Scantron sheet? Should I let him borrow my pencil? I don't think that hard about it. Okay, I've got scripts about small favors and compliance. Okay, and what you see here is in the request-only condition. First of all, you see all the blue numbers are higher, and that's because it's a small favor compared to a big favor. That's not the big interesting part. Okay, what is more interesting is that participants in the small favor condition, they did not distinguish between a real reason versus just the appearance of a reason. Okay, they weren't totally out of it in the sense that the pacific and real reason conditions were higher than the request reason condition. They weren't totally not processing, but the fact that they didn't notice the difference between the appearance of a reason versus an actual reason suggests that there was some degree of mindless automatic kind of behavior going on in that condition. Okay, the situation fit my script. They're asking a small favor. They gave me a reason or the appearance of a reason. I'm not thinking that closely about it. Okay, you comply when this kind of thing happens. With me, questions about this? A very early example, kind of clever, kind of cute way to get at the kind of thinking that could go on or that doesn't go on when we're behaving in actual social interaction with another live, breathing human being. Okay, so the upshot of what Langer was trying to argue, this is what I've been saying, is that many behaviors we assume are performed mindfully, like interacting with other people. If I said to you, or said at a cocktail party, oh, we interact with people mindlessly all the time. People that probably rubs some people the wrong way. They're thinking that she's crazy. No, we don't. We're talking with people. We're mindful. We're there. We're not these robots. Okay, but the suggestion here is that a lot of what we think is mindful might actually be occurring mindlessly. And once again, this is probably an adaptive thing. It reserves cognitive resources for things that are more important, that we need them more for. Unless people lack a script to follow, meaning I've never been in a situation where someone's asked a favor of me, I've never driven before, what have you, if I don't have a script, or there's something in the situation that signals and alerts me to, you better pay attention here. Okay, get your cognitive resources going because this is a weird situation, there's traffic, this is a big favor, what have you. People are going to only engage in relatively automatic thinking, processing a relatively minimal amount of information with a minimal amount of effort. This study should be reminding you a lot of the Barge et al. Studies done published in 1996. Let's be honest here, how many of you have read this article already? Honestly. Cool, 10% of you. Okay, this is good review for the exam. You need to read this article, obviously, okay, but I'm going to go maybe 2% slower since it sounds like most of you haven't read it. In the 1990s, John Barge and his graduate students sort of had this modern version of the argument that behavior can often occur automatically. And now we're in the language of automatic versus control. We're forwarding 2 decades. They wanted to argue that social behavior, just like our judgments, our impressions, our interpretations of social stimuli, can be influenced by schemas that are triggered by the environment, so too can our social behavior be triggered by cues in the environment, okay? Such as cues that trigger us to be aggressive or trigger us to be kind, to help other people, trigger us to comply or not comply with a request. And the reason, in very simplistic terms, they argue this is possible is because Just as we have representations of traits, stereotype groups, schemas about ourselves, we also have schemas or representations of behaviors. We know what it means to act aggressively. We know what it means to act arrogantly. We have stored knowledge, behavioral schemas or representations. They're available in memory. And so like all the other schemas we've been talking about, they can be activated consciously or not, okay, chronically or temporarily. And should they be activated in an applicable situation, it may well lead me to act in ways, move my body in ways in line with that behavioral schema. You could prime me with aggressiveness, for example, and let's say the situation is one where somebody may be ambiguously insulting me. I'm probably more likely to behave aggressively than if I had not been primed with aggressiveness. Now, just like in the impression and judgment world we've been talking about, you could prime me with aggressive behavior all you want, but if I'm sitting there with Mother Teresa or some other really calm, nice person, you're probably not going to get aggressive behavior because thankfully it matters that there's some sort of fit or relevance between the things that are brought to mind, the behaviors that are brought to mind, and whether they're appropriate in the situation. Okay, we just don't get controlled by the activation of our schemas willy-nilly. Okay, there is some applicability that matters, a term you should know by now. Okay, 3 studies. Ignore this slide. Don't write it down. It's just making the point that as we were talking about availability, accessibility, and applicability affecting perceptions and judgments, now we're talking about the same darn principles affecting behavior. That's all. Okay? Way too much work to make that sliding point. Okay, what did they do in this study? There's 3 of them. Okay, there's actually more, but I think there are 4 because they redid one of the experiments. In the first experiment, trying to look at this idea of automatic behavior, they had participants engage in a unscramble the sentence task to prime either rudeness, politeness, or nothing. So I believe I had you guys do a similar task when I was trying to prime conceited or confident, self-confident. So they, her, bother, usually see, they usually bother her is the sentence they were wanting participants to generate. The idea is, I guess it's supposed to be sort of related to aggressiveness. I don't know. There are better examples of this. But participants had to fill out or unscramble a series of sentences whose meanings connoted either rudeness, politeness, or neither. Then they set up this kind of elaborate situation. So participants think this is just some task they have to do in the laboratory, and that for the second task in the experiment, they actually have to go down the hall to participate in the second task, the second survey, in a room down the hall. Unbeknownst to participants, down the hall, a specific situation was set up where rudeness or politeness was potentially applicable. So down the hall, the experimenter is listening for when the participant is coming down the hall, and there's a confederate acting like another participant in the room, and the experimenter is sitting there answering a series of inane and annoying questions from this alleged other participant. Okay, so the back is to the outside of the room. This is the annoying participant. He keeps asking these questions, and I have to sit there as the experimenter. He's the confederate, actually, asking question after question. The participant is coming down the hall, and the question is he going to rudely interrupt this interaction, or is he going to politely wait? Okay, and is this going to be affected by what he or she was primed with? You with me? Okay, and the way they measured that was how long it took before they said, excuse me, I need the next task, how long it took before they interrupted this planned exchange between the experimenter and alleged other participant. And the upshot is, and you can get the exact results in the paper, that people primed with rudeness were more likely, I think they were more likely to interrupt than participants in the other 2 conditions, because some of the participants didn't ever interrupt, okay, and they had to put a time limit on it, okay? So I can't remember the time limit, 6 minutes or 12 minutes or something like that. But before that time limit, I believe there were more participants in the rudeness condition who interrupted before the time limit, and a greater percentage of people the time in which it took for them to interrupt was shorter than the time it took participants in the other conditions. So consistent with the idea that being exposed to rudeness-related concepts probably primed behavioral representations of rudeness relative to politeness or neither, and had an impact on participants' behavior in this applicable situation. With me so far? Okay, that was one example of automatic behavior. Here's a second. There's actually 2 separate studies they did. It doesn't matter, they were nearly identical. Here they wanted to prime a stereotype schema. And they pre-tested and found out that people have certain stereotypes of what the elderly people are like. This is at NYU. This is on the East Coast. You know, New Yorkers, where I'm from, we think of the elderly as like Jewish people who go down to Florida in the summer. I mean, the wintertime, where we retire down there. It's a particular stereotype you have of elderly people in the Northeast. And they, once again, had participants fill out a scrambled sentence task, unscramble a series of sentences. For some of the participants, they got words related to the elderly stereotype, like Florida, wrinkle, bingo, what have you. Now, interestingly, and this is kind of cool, they didn't actually prime the elderly behavior they were interested in, because the idea is if you prime the stereotype, you're going to prime all the other things that come with it. Just like if you prime Asian, you're not going to only make inferences about how good they are at math, you also make inferences about their hair color and their social skills and that they like rice, what have you. You make all sorts of inferences, okay? Okay, so you either unscramble sentences that have these elderly-related words or not, and then you think the experiment is over, you're leaving. I went to graduate school here at NYU, and the study was done when I was there, so I know it well. They walk down there's only one way out of 6 Washington Place, down in the village at NYU. You got to leave down a particular hallway to get to the elevator to get out of the building. So they knew that. So participants are leaving after they think they're done with the experiment. Unbeknownst to them, there's some RA down the hall sitting there pretending to study who has a stopwatch. And they are measuring the amount of time it takes participants to walk from leaving the room to some little hidden sticker on the floor. Okay? And what they found was that participants exposed to elderly-related words walk slower, significantly slower than those not exposed to those words. Arguing, I see skepticism, that's cool, that's fine, okay? Arguing that, elderly people move slowly, okay? So they are walking slower. No one believed them, they did the study again. There's a big controversy in our field right now about this study. Anybody know about this kind of thing? No, okay, so it's a really big debate in our field. People have tried to replicate this, it hasn't been replicated. If you're interested, you can ask me more about it, but let me just say that there's a lot more evidence than simply this for this basic notion. Okay, if you really think about it, the basic notion is that situational cues can subtly influence our behavior. That happens, okay? You may not buy this particular example, but it happens, that situation